So imagine for a second, right? You just got the keys to your dream home,
Oh, the best feeling.
right? You've moved into this uh, brand new, beautiful master planned community. I mean, the lawn is just perfectly manicured. The HVAC is humming. You're unpacking boxes. And then,
Let me guess.
yeah, you hear it.
The scratching.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just this distinct heavy scratching right above your head. So you pop the attic hatch to,
Yeah.
investigate. And you realize a family of raccoons has already claimed your pristine climate-controlled insulation as, like, their master suite.
Yeah, they moved in, got comfortable, and started redecorating before you even unpacked the good china.
It is a complete nightmare scenario. But the thing is, for a huge number of people, it's just reality. So today we are taking a deep dive into a stack of service guides, field notes, and, well, biological data detailing wildlife removal in a place called Porter, Texas.
Right, Porter.
And the goal here isn't just to, talk about pest control. What we're really looking at is the front line of a clash, like the very messy, very complicated intersection of rapid human development and deeply established wildlife habitats.
And, I mean, it's an intersection that is only getting busier. Because to really understand why this clash happens so intensely in this specific area, you really have to look at the geography of Porter.
Yeah, set the scene for us.
So it's an unincorporated community in eastern Montgomery County, Texas. And what makes it this perfect storm for wildlife encounters is the environmental friction.
The friction, right?
Yeah. You have these ancient, dense, piney woods and wetland habitats. It sits right near Lake Houston with these heavily wooded corridors just running alongside Caney Creek.
Yeah.
I mean, it is lush, ancient bottomland.
Right. And then smack in the middle of that ancient bottomland, you just have exploding residential growth.
Exactly.
You have older, heavily wooded rural lots along FM 1314 sitting shoulder to shoulder with massive sprawling new subdivisions. I mean, we are just dropping thousands of houses right into an ecosystem that wildlife has relied on for millennia.
Precisely. This combination, the dense tree canopy, the constant water supply from the creeks, and the rapid construction, it basically creates a massive pressure cooker.
Wow.
When the bulldozers roll in, the animals don't just, pack up and hike to the next county.
Right. They don't have a moving van.
Exactly. They stay. They just adapt to the new structures. I mean, a hollow tree or an attic. To a raccoon, an attic is just a tree that never leaks and stays 72 degrees all year.
Which brings us to the actual frontline responders dealing with this, a local company called the Critter Team.
Right.
They were founded in June 2015 by Mike Garrett, and he's a retired U.S. military veteran.
Which is an important detail.
Oh, absolutely, because that military background clearly bleeds into their entire operational philosophy. I was looking at their paperwork, and they hold a Texas nuisance wildlife removal permit. And this is wild. They carry massive insurance.
Oh, yeah. The liability coverage?
Yeah.
Yep.
$1 million per occurrence, $2 million aggregate general liability, plus full workers' compensation.
Which, I should point out, is incredibly rare in this industry, but it's absolutely necessary given the risks involved.
Well, I do have to ask, though, because $1 million liability policy sounds a little intense for, like, catching a rogue squirrel.
Sure.
And on a broader level, if someone has pests, why wouldn't they just call their regular bug exterminator? I feel like a lot of homeowners would just assume, pest control is pest control.
It's a very common assumption, and it's exactly where homeowners get themselves into thousands of dollars of trouble.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Because a traditional exterminator is mostly dealing with insects using chemical applications. They are spraying perimeters. Wildlife removal requires an entirely different skill set.
Okay, how so?
Well, it requires a deep understanding of animal psychology, biology, and honestly, structural engineering.
Structural engineering, wow.
Yeah, you aren't spraying a baseboard for ants. You are actively trying to outsmart a highly motivated mammal that can quite literally tear your roof off.
Right, right.
And as for the insurance, when you are dealing with venomous snakes, steep roof lines, and massive biohazards, a standard handyman policy just won't cover the liability if things go terribly wrong.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. You need a specialized tactical approach.
Yeah.
And the Critter Team has these rigid rules for how they operate. Like, they are entirely poison-free.
Yes.
They mandate humane removal, they do full attic decontamination, and they handle the actual structural damage repair. Plus, they have a strict no subcontractor policy.
Right, meaning every job is handled in-house.
Exactly. So let's get into the mechanics of how they actually fight this battle. Let's look at the threats, starting from the outside in.
Well, the most logical place to begin is the sky-down approach. Because in Porter, The dense pine canopy acts as a literal highway. It allows animals to completely bypass your ground-level defenses and walk right onto your roof. And the roofline is incredibly vulnerable, especially to bats.
Yeah, the sources noted that bat colonies are incredibly common across Porter, especially near Caney Creek and the homes that back up to those preserved green spaces.
Yeah.
And we aren't talking about, like, 2 or 3 bats getting lost in an attic, right?
No, no.
These colonies can number in the hundreds.
Hundreds, easily. And the crazy thing is, they only need the tiniest of gaps to gain entry.
How tiny are we talking?
Oh, just a fraction of an inch. They typically squeeze behind the fascia board, which is that horizontal trim board capping the edge of your rafters outside the house, or they get in where the soffit transitions to the roof.
But people probably think, I have a brand new house. It's perfectly sealed.
Right. But builder-grade vents are notoriously loose. A bat can sense the thermal leak the warm air escaping from your attic, and they just follow it right inside.
Okay, so if I'm a homeowner and I spot a gap under my eaves where hundreds of bats are flying in, my immediate instinct is to grab a ladder, a hammer, and a piece of wood and just nail it shut while they're sleeping during the day. Problem solved.
That is the absolute worst thing you could possibly do.
Really? Why?
Because if you seal that hole during the day, you have just trapped hundreds of live bats inside your home.
Oh, no.
Yeah. They will panic, they will desperately search for a way out, and very often they push down through the wall voids and end up flying around your living room or your kitchen.
That sounds like a literal horror movie.
It is, or they simply die in your walls, which creates a severe odor and a massive biohazard.
Okay, so how do you actually evict 100 bats without trapping them inside?
This is where the specialized training comes in. Mike Garrett actually holds a certification from the National Wildlife Control Operators Association, specifically their bat standard certification. Yeah, they've completed dozens of these projects. The mechanism they use is a one-way exclusion device. Think of it as a specialized, smooth-sided funnel installed directly over the entry point.
Okay, a funnel.
Right. So when the bats drop out at night to hunt for insects, they just slide right through the funnel. But when they try to return, the smooth plastic prevents them from gripping, and the narrow opening stops them from flying back in.
That's brilliant.
Once the entire colony has safely leshed, they remove the funnels and permanently seal the entry points with animal-proof steel.
So you are basically putting a one-way door on their house.
Exactly.
But wait, even after they are gone, you still have a massive problem left behind, right? The guano.
Oh, yes.
Because having hundreds of bats roosting above your ceiling leaves a staggering amount of waste. The CDC explicitly warns about the health hazards here.
They do. The Centers for Disease Control has very strict warnings. Aside from the risk of rabies, which is obviously a fatal viral disease transmitted through bites or scratches from a sick bat.
Right, which everyone knows to avoid.
The secondary, insidious threat is the guano itself. Bat guano harbors histoplasma fungal spores.
Histoplasma.
Right. When that waste dries in a hot enclosed attic space and gets disturbed, those microscopic spores become airborne. If they get sucked into your home's HVAC system, you and your family are suddenly breathing in a severe, potentially life-threatening respiratory pathogen.
So it's not just an animal problem, it's an indoor air quality crisis.
Exactly, which is why the decontamination process is just as vital as the removal.
Wow. And the bats aren't the only ones exploiting the roofline, right? Birds are doing it too, like European starlings, house sparrows, pigeons.
Yeah, and a bird might seem far less intimidating than a bat colony, but the structural damage they cause is completely disproportionate to their size.
How so?
Well, in these Porter neighborhoods, they target dryer vents, bathroom exhaust vents, and open soffits. And in the commercial buildings along the I-69 corridor, they pack into signage and loading docks.
And packing a dryer vent with nesting material, which is essentially, what, dry grass, twigs, feathers?
Pretty much.
That is a massive fire hazard when you run a heating appliance through it.
Right.
Not to mention their waste is highly acidic, so it actually corrodes metal building materials over time.
Yeah, it eats right through it.
But there's a catch here. You can't just climb up and yank a bird's nest out of a vent, can you?
You cannot. If you do, you run directly into federal law.
Federal law over a bird's nest.
Yes. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service enforces the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. It makes it a federal crime to disturb active nests, eggs, or hatchlings of protected native species without very specific authorization.
Oh, wow. So you really need an operator who can properly identify the species and ensure you aren't committing a federal offense.
Exactly. And to handle this, the critter team uses bird barrier certified installations.
Bird barrier.
Yeah, these are specialized vent covers, netting, and spiking systems that keep the birds out permanently, but they stay completely compliant with conservation laws.
So it's this delicate balance of protecting the property while respecting the ecosystem.
That's the perfect way to put it.
Okay, so we've established the threats from the sky. Now let's move away from the gaps and vents and look at the animals that don't just slip in but actively tear your house apart to get in.
The roof wreckers.
Yes, the raccoons and the squirrels. These guys are the heavy lifters of property damage. Let's talk raccoons first because their motivation is incredibly strong.
Very strong.
In late winter, a female raccoon is heavily pregnant. She is actively hunting for a warm, dry, predator-free place to have her litter. And an attic is just perfect.
Oh, it's ideal for them. And they will literally use their hands to tear open a roof ridge vent or rip straight through a thick plastic mushroom vent.
Just with their hands?
Yeah, they are incredibly powerful animals. And with Porter's proximity to Lake Houston and all those wooded creeks, raccoons have reliable, heavily covered travel routes straight to residential roof lines. I mean, even if you trim your trees back, they can shimmy right up your aluminum downspouts.
That is terrifying. So how do you even know they're up there? Assuming you don't hear them walking around like heavy boots in the attic.
Well, there are a few visual cues. You'll often find muddy, hand-like footprints on your gutters. But the most obvious sign is the droppings they leave on the roof.
Right. The field notes were very specific about this.
Yes. Field technicians vividly describe them as being the size of Chihuahua droppings.
Chihuahua-sized droppings on your roof shingles. That is quite the visual.
It's hard to miss.
And once she gets inside and has her litter, the damage compounds rapidly. They crush the insulation, reducing your home's energy efficiency, and they tear up flexible ductwork. And just like with the bats, there is a serious CDC health warning here.
Yes, Balis ascaris.
Balis ascaris.
It is a dangerous parasitic roundworm. The eggs are shed in raccoon feces. What makes it so terrifying is that those microscopic eggs can survive in your attic insulation for years.
Years.
Long after the raccoon is gone, anyone working in that attic without proper respiratory gear is at risk of exposure.
Which again proves why a standard handyman should not be handling this. And the trapping process itself has to be incredibly strategic. The critter team uses humane live traps that they check daily, but they have these specific protocols for nursing females.
They do. They actively work to keep the mother and her young together so the entire family can be safely relocated, because the alternative is leaving orphaned babies to die in the walls.
Which nobody wants.
No. It's the ethical way to handle it, and honestly the most effective. But while raccoons rely on brute strength to breach a house, squirrels use a completely different tool.
Their teeth.
Their teeth.
Ah, squirrels. In the East Texas piney woods, those tall pines put branches right in jumping distance of the roof. And honestly, when you look at the damage they cause, squirrels are essentially nature's worst, most caffeinated electricians.
That is a very accurate analogy. Squirrels are rodents, meaning their front teeth never stop growing. They are biologically compelled to chew constantly just to file them down. They easily push through the loose screening on gable vents or chew straight through soft roof connections. And once they are in the attic, they start chewing on your home's electrical wiring.
And the Kansas State University Extension points this out explicitly.
Mm-hmm.
Stripped wiring in an attic surrounded by dry, shredded wood framing and insulation is a massive, immediate fire risk.
Absolutely. And this is why you cannot patch a squirrel hole with standard hardware store materials.
Because they'll just chew through it again.
They will chew right through wood, plastic, or basic mesh. To stop them permanently, the critter team fabricates 23-gauge aluminum right on site.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they custom bend the metal to fit the exact contours of the compromised soffit or vent, paint it to match the home's exterior, and install it. It acts as a custom-fitted armor for your roofline.
I love the idea of custom-fitted armor for a house. So we've covered the attic and the roof. Now let's follow the damage deeper. Let's look inside the dark, enclosed spaces.
The walls.
Yeah, the wall voids, the subfloors, the ground-level penetrations. Because once you get into the walls, you aren't just dealing with a single animal anymore. You are suddenly hosting an entire enclosed indoor ecosystem.
You're talking about a literal food chain operating inside the framing of your house. The prey and the predators that hunt them.
Let's start with the prey. Roof rats.
Ugh, roof rats.
The dense vegetation and wetland areas in Porter give them the perfect environment to thrive. and they barely need an opening to get inside. I mean, a mouse needs a gap the size of the pencil eraser, but a full-grown rat only needs a gap the size of a dime to flatten its ribcage and slip through.
It's hard to believe.
A dime.
Yeah.
How are there even holes that small in a well-built house?
Every house has them. Rats exploit the tiny gaps around AC line penetrations where the pipes enter the siding. Or they use weep vents.
Weep vents.
Yeah, if you have a brick home, the masons purposefully leave small vertical gaps in the mortar near the foundation. Those are weak vents designed to let moisture drain out of the walls.
Oh, sure.
But to a rat, it's an open front door. And unlike bats, which leave a concentrated pile of guano, rats scatter their dark, rice-sized pellets everywhere they travel. You'll find them along garage shelving and kitchen drawers and all through the attic.
And they gnaw on PVC plumbing, which causes hidden water leaks, and the EPA warns about airborne pathogens in their urine. But here's the part that really surprised me.
What's that?
When someone realizes they have rats, the first instinct is usually to run to the hardware store, buy a bucket of rat poison, and toss it in the attic. It's cheap, it's easy. But the critter team absolutely refuses to use poison under any circumstances.
Yeah.
Why take that tool off the table?
Because of what inevitably happens after the rat consumes the poison.
Okay.
It doesn't die immediately. It feels sick, and its instinct is to crawl deep into a dark, secure place to hide.
Oh, no.
Usually dipped inside a wall void or underneath a bathtub, and that is where it dies. Within a few days, as the body decomposes, it creates an odor so overpowering and horrific that it can literally make your home uninhabitable.
That is foul.
It is. The only way to fix it at that point is to start cutting holes in your drywall to find the carcass.
That is a nightmare. I guess the cheap fix ends up costing you a wall.
Exactly. That is why they rely strictly on mechanical snap traps placed strategically along confirmed travel paths. It physically secures the animal so it can be completely removed from the property. Once the population is cleared, they seal up all those dime-sized weep vents and gaps with heavy dewy copper or stainless steel mesh and high-grade sealant.
Okay, so having rats in your walls is bad enough. But having rats attracts the next level of our indoor ecosystem. Snakes.
Yes. Porter sits in prime snake territory. You've got venomous species like copperheads and western cottonmouths and non-venomous ones like rat snakes and coach whips.
And the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department notes that properties bordering those wooded green spaces or standing water see encounters very frequently.
You do.
And there is this massive aha moment when you look at the biology of why snakes enter homes. It's like the golden rule of wildlife removal. If you find a snake inside your house, you almost certainly have a rodent problem.
If we break down snake behavior, they are incredibly simple creatures. They only care about three things: hibernating to stay warm, mating, or eating.
Right.
If it's not the dead of winter and it's not mating season, that snake is in your house for one reason. It smelled the thermal and scent trails of the rats, and it followed them right through a gap in your garage door seal or an AC line.
It's wild to think about. Your house has accidentally become a giant enclosed terrarium.
It really has.
You provide the climate control, the rats move in for the shelter, and the top-tier predators follow the rats inside for the buffet. So, to solve the snake problem, you literally have to solve the rat problem first. You take away the food source, the diners stop showing up.
Precisely. The technicians, who, by the way, are specifically trained in handling venomous reptiles, they will safely capture and relocate the snake. But the long-term fix isn't just removing the snake, it's sealing the ground-level penetrations and trapping the rodents that drew it there in the first place.
Okay, we've gone from the roof canopy down through the walls to the foundation. Let's step completely outside onto the lawn itself. The ground game.
The armadillos.
The armadillos. They seem so completely harmless. They just wander around like little nearsighted armored tanks.
They do.
But the sandy soils and the heavily irrigated lawns of these master-planned communities in Porter are basically an all-you-can-eat grub buffet for them.
And the damage they can do in a single night is astonishing. They dig these distinctive cone-shaped holes 3 to 4 inches deep all across the turf as they root for insects. They can destroy thousands of dollars of landscaping while you sleep.
Oh, wow.
But the cosmetic damage to the grass isn't the real threat here.
Right, it's the structural risk. Their burrows are deep and extensive. They can completely undermine foundations, sidewalks, and AC pads. If an armadillo burrows heavily near a foundation footer, it can lead to the concrete settling, shifting, and cracking over time.
And trapping them requires an exact science. According to the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, store-bought cage traps rarely work for armadillos.
Really? Why not?
You can't just toss a piece of bait in a cage and hope they walk in. Armadillos have terrible eyesight. They navigate primarily by scent and by following physical barriers, like fences or walls.
So you have to literally funnel a blind tank into the trap.
Exactly. Trapping them relies on placing the cages at highly specific angles along their confirmed travel routes, often using wooden boards to create a funnel that physically guides them through the door.
Now, managing all of this, catching the bats, outsmarting the raccoons, handling venomous snakes and funneling armadillos, that is only half the battle.
Oh, for sure.
The other half is the sheer logistical coordination required. Because things get messy.
Very messy. We're talking about skunks that decide to den under raised foundations. And a skunk discharging its odor can make a commercial business completely unusable.
Yeah.
We're talking about opossums nesting in crawl spaces. And we're talking about the grim reality we mentioned earlier, dead animal extraction.
When something naturally dies inside a chimney, a wall void, or an attic, someone has to pinpoint the location, extract the carcass, and sanitize the area to stop the flies and the odor.
It's awful work.
And coordinating all this chaos, that falls to Victoria Garrett. She's been the office manager since January 2016. Imagine her daily logistical puzzle.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
She is deploying trappers, managing inspections, scheduling custom metal work, and organizing decontamination teams.
She essentially runs the command center. Homeowners are often calling in an absolute panic. When someone has an animal scratching through their drywall at 2 a.m., they need a coordinated military precision response.
Right, they need help now.
And for residents in Porter, Victoria and the Critter team are the specific contact that handles that entire life cycle, from the emergency call to the 247 removal to the final damage repair.
It's an incredible operation.
Yeah.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We've covered an incredible journey today.
We really have.
We've seen bats squeezing into tiny thermal leaks in the fascia boards, raccoons tearing apart roof vents, an entire food chain of rats and snakes operating silently inside the walls, down to armadillos structurally undermining the concrete foundation.
It means that dealing with nature in our modern environment is absolutely not a DIY project. You can't just nail a board over a hole, set down some cheap poison, and hope the problem resolves itself.
No, you really can't.
To truly protect a home, you need a profound understanding of animal psychology, biology, and architecture. You have to know the physics of a one-way exclusion funnel, how diseases like histoplasma and Belisascaris spread in an HVAC system, and how to fabricate custom metal barriers that rodents can't chew through.
It is a highly specialized science. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a philosophical thought that really stuck with me after reading through all these field notes.
Let's hear it.
We constantly talk about nuisance wildlife invading our human spaces. We use words like trespassers and infestations, but look at what we're actually building.
Exactly. When we bulldoze 1,000 acres of ancient piney woods to build a master-planned community, we don't just displace the habitat.
Right.
We lay down lush, constantly irrigated lawns packed with grubs. We build perfectly climate-controlled, rain-proof, insulated attics. We construct environments that eliminate all of their natural top-tier predators. We haven't destroyed their home. We've accidentally built them a 5-star resort.
Oh, absolutely.
So the next time you hear a scratch in the ceiling, you have to ask yourself, are they invading us? Or are we just the ones who signed the mortgage on their new luxury hotel? Who is really investing to whom?
It is a very humbling but highly accurate perspective on our relationship with the natural world. Definitely something to mull over the next time you hear something bump in the night. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious and keep an ear out for caffeinated electricians.